The temporal winds whipped around elder Lyra, her ancient eyes scanning the shimmering portal. Another year, another team of brave elven women embarking on the perilous journey to find a new dawn. "May the stars guide you, my daughters," she whispered, her voice a fragile echo of the countless goodbyes she'd uttered. Her gaze lingered on Elara, her dark hair a stark contrast to the luminous green of her cybernetic suit, a beacon of hope in the encroaching gloom of their dying world. Elara's mission was clear: find a habitable planet, a new home for their dwindling race. But the cosmos was a cruel mistress, and the path to salvation was fraught with unforeseen dangers. A sudden, violent tremor shook Lyra from her reverie. The portal, meant to be a precise instrument of temporal displacement, flared erratically, its light consuming Elara's retreating form in a blinding flash. Lyra's heart ached with a familiar dread, the signs of a temporal anomaly, a ripple in the fabric of time itself. Elara awoke amidst the ruins of a forgotten city, the air thick with the scent of ozone and decay. Her suit, once a marvel of elven engineering, flickered erratically, its life support systems failing. The sleek, futuristic skyscrapers she remembered were replaced by crumbling monoliths, overgrown with strange, bioluminescent flora. 1,000 years, the suit's damaged chronometer weakly displayed. 1,000 years flung into the future, and her mission, her race's last hope, now seemed an impossible dream. She was adrift, a relic in a world she no longer recognized. The days bled into weeks, a relentless struggle for survival. Scavenging for food, evading strange, mutated creatures that lurked in the shadows of the ruins, Elara pushed herself to the brink. One evening, while sheltering in the skeletal remains of what was once a grand library, a faint whimper caught her attention. A young girl, no older than 12, huddled amongst decaying data slabs, her eyes wide with fear. She was human, but something about her face, her delicate features, stirred a forgotten memory. "Who are you?" Elara asked, her voice raspy from disuse. The girl flinched, then cautiously looked up. "My name is Lyra," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "And I'm lost." Elara's breath hitched. Lyra. The name of the elder who had sent her on this impossible quest. Could it be? As they shared their stories, a chilling truth emerged. Young Lyra was also a temporal refugee, displaced from the same time as Elara, but by a different, less controlled, anomaly. She had been on a research trip with her parents, studying ancient temporal distortions, when their own vessel was caught in the same temporal storm that swept Elara away. Her parents, however, were gone. United by their shared predicament, a fragile hope began to blossom amidst the desolation. They were both alone, yet together, they might stand a chance. Their journey became a desperate search for answers, a quest to understand what had happened to them, and more importantly, how to return home. But home was a concept that grew increasingly distant, shrouded in the mists of 1,000 lost years. Their path was fraught with peril. They navigated treacherous landscapes, outsmarted dangerous scavengers, and learned to decipher the cryptic clues left behind by a civilization long past. One harrowing encounter saw them trapped in a collapsing tunnel, narrowly escaping a cascade of debris thanks to Elara's quick thinking and the fading power of her suit's shield. Another time, they faced down a pack of aggressive, cybernetically enhanced wolves, their glowing red eyes a terrifying sight in the perpetual twilight of the ruined city. Young Lyra, though scared, showed a remarkable resilience, her sharp intellect proving invaluable in deciphering ancient maps and understanding the strange, technological remnants they encountered. "We need to find a temporal anchor," Elara explained one evening, huddled around a meager fire, a point in time and space where the anomalies are weakest. "It might be our only way back." Their search led them to the outskirts of the ancient city, to a towering, skeletal structure that hummed with a strange, latent energy. It was a temporal observatory, long abandoned, but its core still pulsed with a faint, ethereal glow. As they ventured deeper, The air grew thick with static, and ghostly images of the past flickered around them, fleeting glimpses of the world Elara had left behind, and the future they now inhabited. Suddenly, alarms blared through the derelict structure, and they found themselves cornered by a group of heavily armed figures. These were the Reclaimers, a faction of survivors who saw any advanced technology as a threat, believing it to be the cause of their world's downfall. A fierce firefight ensued, Elara's training kicking in as she used her dwindling energy reserves to deflect their plasma blasts, while young Lyra, surprisingly nimble, found weak points in their defenses, allowing Elara to disable their weapons. They barely escaped, leaving the Reclaimers in disarray, but the encounter left them shaken and their resources even more depleted. Days turned into weeks, their journey punctuated by narrow escapes and moments of despair. One particularly harsh winter, they found themselves stranded in a desolate, frozen wasteland. Their food supplies ran critically low, and young Lyra fell ill, her small body racked with fever. Elara, desperate, found a forgotten medical facility, its power source miraculously still active. She managed to synthesize a rudimentary cure, but the experience highlighted the fragility of their existence. As spring returned, they stumbled upon an ancient data core, buried deep beneath the ruins of a collapsed laboratory. With the last vestiges of her suit's power, Elara managed to access its archives. What they found was a trove of information, records of the temporal anomalies, prophecies of a new world, and most importantly, a faint, almost imperceptible temporal signature, a beacon, not from the past, but from an even more distant future. "It's a stable temporal gateway," Elara whispered, her voice filled with a renewed sense of purpose. "But it's not going back. It's pushing forward." They understood then. Their struggle wasn't to return to a dying past, but to embrace a new future. The temporal displacement wasn't a punishment, but a redirection. The gateway pulsed with a soft, inviting light, offering a path to a world reborn. With a shared glance, a silent understanding passing between them, Elara and young Lyra stepped forward, hand in hand, into the shimmering unknown. The future was not what they had expected, but it was theirs to forge, a home for themselves, and perhaps, for the elven race that would one day follow. And in that moment, the old elf Lyra, observing from across the vast expanse of time, smiled, a tear tracing a path down her ancient cheek. Her daughters had not returned, but they had found something far greater. They had found hope. Elder Lyra stood at the precipice of the temporal chamber, the hum of ancient machinery vibrating through the very bones of the elven city. Her gaze, deep and sorrowful, fell upon the young elf before her. This was Lyra 7, the latest hope in a long line of desperate ventures. The dying world of Ethel, once a jewel of technological and magical harmony, now gasped for breath under a sky choked with industrial haze and fading starlight. Lyra 7, the elder's voice was a low thrum, carrying the weight of centuries of hope and loss. "You understand the gravity of your mission. Our world, it has little time left." Lyra 7, her dark hair intricately braided with shimmering data cables, nodded, her green eyes reflecting the faint, pulsing light of the temporal gate behind them. She wore the standard temporal scout uniform, a sleek, dark suit, less armored than Elara's, designed for stealth and long-term survival rather than direct confrontation. On her chest, a small, intricate locket pulsed with a soft, green glow, a family heirloom imbued with ancient elven navigational enchantments. "I am ready, Elder," her voice was clear, betraying only a hint of the tremor in her heart. She was young, barely a century old by elven reckoning, but her spirit was fierce, honed by generations of impending doom. Elder Lyra extended a gnarled hand, placing it gently on Lyra 7's shoulder. "Remember the protocols. Seek a world with sustainable life, a vibrant ecosystem. Avoid any signs of advanced, destructive civilizations. We seek rebirth, not a repetition of our mistakes." Her eyes, though clouded with age, held a sharp, knowing glint. "And remember, Lyra 7, the temporal currents are unpredictable. You may be pushed forward, or even backward. Adapt. Survive. And never forget where you came from, even if where changes its meaning. The Elder's words echoed in the vast chamber, mingling with the escalating hum of the temporal gateway. It was a ritual repeated yearly, a desperate gamble against extinction. Only females were chosen for these temporal voyages. Their unique biological connection to the temporal energies, a secret known only to the Eldar Council, allowed them to withstand the distortions of time travel, to anchor themselves, however tenuously, to the temporal flow. Each departure was a silent prayer, a silent sacrifice. As the gate's energies intensified, swirling into a vortex of emerald light, Lyra 7 took a deep breath. She looked back one last time at the assembled Eldar, their faces etched with a familiar blend of resolve and sorrow. They were counting on her. The future of their entire race rested on her slender shoulders. May your path be swift, and your discovery bountiful, Elder Lyra intoned, her voice rising above the din. Go, daughter of Ethel. Find us a new dawn. With a final, determined nod, Lyra 7 turned and stepped into the blinding emerald light of the temporal gate. The light flared, enveloped her, and then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, leaving only the fading hum of the machinery and the heavy silence of the chamber. Elder Lyra remained standing, her gaze fixed on the empty space where Lyra 7 had been, another name added to the silent roll call of the loss. The cycle continued. The hope, however faint, flickered on,